Hello everyone and welcome back to Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. So today we're going to be reviewing the newest release from Jack Daniel's, the 2020 Single Barrel Special Release Barrel Proof Rye. Now this one comes in at 130.8 proof and was made up of only about 200 barrels. The mash bill on this is 70% rye, 12% malt, and 18% corn. I do want to thank the folks over at Jack Daniel's for supplying me with this sample to review on the channel. When I saw this was released, I searched high and low to try to find it, and thankfully they had sent me one to review on the channel. So without further ado, let's go. Alright guys, so I'll let this sit for about 10 minutes now to let a little bit of air get in there, open it up a little bit. Let's go ahead and look at the color really quick. The first thing that I noticed when I received this sample was how dark it was. It is a nice dark copper color, really, really dark. Coats the glass very, very well, very oily. The aromas, I mean, you can just smell them as I'm rolling around the glass. Let's go ahead and get into the nose. First thing I get is like a nice burnt caramel on the nose. Some burnt sugars. Pick up a little bit further down in there, I get a nice spice cake. So a little bit further away from the glass, there's this nice, a toasted oak aspect to it. Some really interesting nosing notes here. Yeah, all around the glass too, there's this really rich, like butterscotch note to it too. Beautiful nose. All right, guys, let's get into the palate. Cheers. Ooh, that's good. So right away, a nice blast of rye spices cover the whole tongue. It does drink. I would say it drinks like it's 130 proof, but then those rye spices on top of it really packs like a nice rye punch right there on the tongue. Covers the whole tongue. Definitely some rye spices on there. I'm actually picking up, there's a nice maple syrup note that kind of followed through into the finish. I'm going to go ahead and get into a second sip here. After that rye spice comes down a little bit, we'll see what we get on the front and the middle of the palate. And this thing is just oily. Oh, it's so good. So right on the front of the palate, there's a really nice toasted marshmallow note. I did get some like a toasted oak on the nose, but right on the front of the palate, really nice sweetness. I said like a toasted, like a marshmallow. And then those rye spices are kind of still there. They're kind of tingling a little bit. The proof, you still feel it after that second sip. Again, really nice sweetness. Right on the front of the palate, that maple syrup that kind of follows through into the finish. There's a little bit of like a dried fig that kind of sits around like the back of the palate. Really, 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 really nice, like bold flavors too. This is really good. Again, that toasted marshmallow. So right across the middle of the palate, I'm getting the slightest hint of like coconut right across the center of the palate. And then towards the back of the palate, it's that dried fig, those dark fruits, dried fig, like a raisin. And then that finish is like maple syrup. And what's nice about it too is it's very balanced still. So there's still that spiciness that those rye spices are still kind of tingling the palate, but then there's the sweetness and there's a fruitiness to it. Then you get this savory, maple syrup finish. Absolutely fantastic. Let's go ahead and get into the last sip, guys. Cheers. All right, so that's all right. So again, front of the palate, that sweetness, that toasted marshmallow. And actually, on the front of the palate too, I'm picking up like some blackberries. They kind of play off maybe that fig or that raisin, that dark fruit that kind of sits on the back of the palate. Really, that coconut note is definitely still there. It's I thought maybe I was going crazy for a minute, but there's definitely a coconut right across the center of the palate. Going into the finish, you get those the dates, or maybe some figs, some dried figs, maybe some raisins, definitely some dark fruits that are going on along the back of the palate, and then into the finish, you're getting that maple syrup. It's also a little bit of like a black tea note into that finish with that maple syrup. This is an absolutely fantastic release from Jack Daniel's. To be honest with you, this is definitely one of my top 3 ryes so far for 2020. Just, it's so savory, it's viscous, it's coating my entire mouth. Again, those rye spices are still kind of tingling on there. Very, very unique flavors that I pulled out of this. It's my first time tasting it, and I'm pulling out all these flavors. I definitely want to sit with a little bit more, but this is by far one of the best releases as far as ryes go of 2020, hands down. So I want to thank you guys for tuning into this episode of Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. I want to give a big thank you to the folks over at Jack Daniel's who supplied me with the sample to review on the channel. Folks, if you see this rye out in the stores, do yourselves a favor and buy it. This is one of the best rye releases of 2020, bar none. There's so much complexity, there's so much depth. It's savory, it's viscous, there's flavors that play off of one another. It evolves, in your mouth. It's an absolute home run from Jack Daniel's. And again, in my opinion, one of the best rye releases of 2020, bar none. So if you guys are looking for reviews of bourbons, ryes, or some of those dusties, hit that subscribe button and bell notification to be alerted of any upcoming reviews or live streams. You can also find me on Instagram at Dusty Dan's Whiskey Reviews. And until next time, guys, stay dusty.